Welcome to Garden Views, interesting conversations with interesting people who have done and or are doing interesting things. So sit back and enjoy.
Welcome everyone into the garden, and this week we're welcoming in Stephan Schwartz. He's an author on many subjects, and today the topic that we sort of had penciled in was futurism and humanity, which of course can mean a lot of things. So without further ado, I want to introduce Stephan and say hello, and good evening, Stephan. How are you today?
I'm doing fine, Jeff. It's Stephan, and I'm doing very well, and I hope you are too.
Okay, my apologies for that, Stephan. If you want to just give like a brief rundown on your expertise, your background, your education, etc.
Oh, good Lord. Go to StephanASchwartz.com, download my CV. It's 20 pages long. I have been... I don't even know where to start. I do research. I'm a research scientist. I'm an experimentalist. I am interested in. I'm interested in so many things. Right now, I am focused on fostering well-being, and I'm very concerned about the United States. I'm concerned about the whole world, but particularly the United States. I am interested in how consciousness can change culture. I don't even know how to answer that, Jeff.
Okay, that's fine. We can move off of that myopic question and get into more of the conversation, and probably get close enough just through that kind of talking. So you indicate that you're concerned about the whole world, but especially the United States. So I think this show, while it's not limited to the United States, I'd say probably at least 60% of the audience is in the United States. So let's start with that. What are your particular concerns regarding the United States? And just for the sake of time, because this podcast will exist forever, it is March of 2024.
My concerns are that about a third of the Americans no longer support democracy. Let's see how to get into this. About a third of Americans don't understand what fascism is and are in support of Christo-fascism. It's brought on, I think, because of the precognitive fear of what climate change is going to do. It's causing a change throughout the world, shifting to authoritarianism, because when people become frightened, they like to have leaders that tell them, I have certain, knowledge, and if we do this, then we'll get a very particular outcome. That's what's created what I now call the Trump Christo-fascist party. The difficulty is that about a third of Americans are a part of this. Only about 15% of them have college graduates, are college graduates. About 54% of Americans can't read above 6th grade level. 43% can't read above 5th grade level. 6th grade level is the man walked across the street. So they're not capable of understanding, the Washington Post or Time Magazine, the New York Times. They're also illiterate, so they can't calculate fractions. So they couldn't understand a Gallup organized survey or a Pew Research Center survey. About 30% can't even name the 3 branches of government. So what's happened is we have become a country that is not interested in social well-being as it was created, what the founders had in mind. Instead, we have only one social priority, and that's profit and greed, power. And so I think we've lost our way. I am very concerned that Donald Trump might be elected, despite the fact that he's a convicted felon and he's a rapist and all the rest of it, because he and what I call the TCP, the Trump Christo-Fascist Party, what used to be called the Republican Party, will give way to authoritarianism, and this will be the last actual democracy election that we have. I'm also very concerned that we are facing an unprecedented and catastrophic change because of what we have done to the Earth's matrix of consciousness, and that we don't understand that. We're not prepared for it. That we're going to have 3 big migrations in the United States. You can already see it starting away from the coasts. It'll be brought on by the failure to be able to get insurance for your house. It's already started in Florida. So movement away from the coasts, out of the Southwest because of lack of water and because of temperatures that are unendurable, and out of the central states because of cataclysmic weather events. All of this is causing what I call the Great Schism trend. You can see it in the separation of the red-blue states. We're basically becoming 2 countries under a single nation, and that's part of why the Congress has become almost dysfunctional.
Well, there's a lot there.
So I don't know.
Yeah, that's a lot. It's a lot to unpack, and it reminds me of something that my father said.
Database, by the way. It's very important that I tell you, I don't care about political partisanship, except anthropologically. What I care about is actual, objectively verifiable data, and is something fostering well-being.
Yeah, opinions can vary, but numbers tend not to lie. As I was saying, about 40 years ago, my father at the dinner table, and by the way, if you ask him today, he doesn't remember saying it, was talking about the separation between the rich and the uber rich and everyone else, which has only been exacerbated, probably 3 or 4 times over since then. But he said, it's not sustainable. We're going to become Argentina. And, about 40 years ago, I was 15, maybe it was 39, 38 years ago. I didn't really know what that meant. I mean, I knew certain countries had aristocracies and most everyone else was poor. But, as an American kid living in the suburbs, I didn't know what that meant. I know exactly what it means, and I agree with him 100%. Now, unfortunately, he doesn't really remember the wisdom of what he said then, but he, agrees with it. But it does, that trend in and of itself, as I see it, has like a dual part. One of it fits into what you're saying is the only thing that we seem to value is wealth, or even perceived wealth, because a lot of people who live wealthy, frankly, they're false. They're full of it. I know a lot of people who are wealthy who ended up in federal prison, fled, or filed bankruptcy, and you're wondering how they were living so high for a while. The other aspect is that the same people who I think maybe feed into this fascism, this looking for a strongman kind of leader, while they decry the elites, who are usually thought to be wealthy and powerful, they also respect or almost worship their particular elite. So it could be Donald Trump, it could be Elon Musk, it could be Tucker Carlson, it could be, I don't know, it could be the King of England, whatever. It's whoever you decide is your particular elite. they're okay. It's almost like the old thing where nobody liked Congress, but everyone liked their congressperson. The other thing is that this has sort of been a long time brewing, and I understand you're talking from an anthropological perspective, but one of my views is that Congress hasn't done its job for a long time, and they've almost forced the courts to become too politicized, and they've also almost forced presidents to expand executive power. And those two things together sort of made Congress seem marginal and let the people's houses, the representative aspects of government, a little bit off the hook. And so we've sort of been slowly marching into this strongman camp for a while, and it's easier to galvanize around one figure than it is a court of 9 people. And of course, with the court of 9 people, chances are you only agree with maybe half of them anyway. So that's always going to be polarized. So I don't mean to steal any of your thunder, but just some things I'm noticing that fit into the trend. I think as far as this conversation is concerned, it's probably a good place to start with. You said I think you used the phrase eco-consciousness. What do you mean by eco-consciousness, and how does climate change fit in with that?
Well, I didn't say eco-consciousness, but that's a perfectly good term. What I mean by climate change is that we're about to undergo, as anybody who bothers to do the research, you can do 10 minutes worth of a Google search, will very quickly come to understand that we're going to go through cataclysmic weather change because of the abuse that we have done to the planet. I mean, there's no question about it. We're going to see these 3 migrations in the United States, and it's going to involve millions of people. We are utterly unprepared for it. It's already started. We are not preparing as we should. A few states are beginning to take it seriously, but most states aren't, particularly the red states. Relative to what you were saying, that occurred because of the Citizens United court decision, which allowed legalized bribery. That's what has destroyed the Congress, because of why people like Matt Gaetz or Marjorie Taylor Greene or Lauren Boebert, all those people, they got elected because somebody who was very wealthy. And we have 4 people in the United States who have as much wealth as 48% of the population. So you have a few people who are as rich as other countries. Right. And they are that rich because the tax codes were changed by what has now become the Trump Christo-Fascist Party. And so it allowed people to accumulate wealth at a level never before seen, never envisioned by the founders. They buy congressmen or rent them, really. It's going on all the time. It's why our Congress, particularly the House, is so dysfunctional, because all kinds of people are in, particularly people who belong to the TCP party, what used to be the Republican Party, because somebody has put up the millions of dollars it takes to get somebody elected, and they are obligated, and they behave that way, and they take the positions they take because that's what their financial backers want them to do. I mean, this is all very easily provable. It's not a political argument. It's an argument about facts. We are about to have an election whose real surface, whose real reality is, do you vote for democracy or do you vote for authoritarianism? It has nothing to do with Democrat, Republican in that sense. It's about, are you going to vote for an authoritarian, or are you, who says quite openly that's what he's going to be, or are you going to vote to continue democracy? And because of the low education level, because of the low literacy, because these people are so frightened, because that it has made them resentful and angry. They feel victimized. This is low income, low IQ, low education people who are manipulated by a small group of people who have wealth equal to some countries. And so we are in danger of losing our democracy.
Well, what do you say to the people who, I mean, first of all, I don't know that anybody thinks of themselves as low information or low education. I don't think anybody walks around thinking, I think that most people don't think they're stupid. They think that they know something somebody else doesn't. And I don't think that anyone is necessarily stupid about everything. I think everybody has talents and things that they're smart about and blind spots. But I know some people who are objectively intelligent who doubt or deny global warming. Some, they just feel it's part of a natural cycle.
But they don't know the science.
Well, they think they do.
Science, so it's not.
Well, let's go through then.
No, they don't.
Well,
There's no question about this.
Well,
if they don't think that climate change is real, it's because they have not read the scientific papers. This is not a debate. We are not at a debate stage. This is like somebody coming down with cancer and saying, no, I don't believe in cancer.
Well, that's a good example because it is a little bit of a, I mean, some people call it the post-truth era. I mean, it probably started with, the certain vaccines. I'm not even talking about the most recent issue with COVID. I'm talking about, the vaccines called autism campaign, which has been debunked about 1,000 times over. But nobody believes anything anymore. Nobody trusts the media, and the media had its own part to play. I mean, you can just debate what the media is. I mean, theoretically, I'm part of the media right now.
We are seeing the weaponization of misinformation. That's what AI is going to do. We are already vulnerable, and because most people get their information off of social media, and social media has been weaponized. And so most of what people read is false. But they don't know that because they don't read anything other than social media. The average teenager, for instance, spends about 4 hours a day doing social media. The average adult, about 2.5 hours. That's their principal place for getting information, and almost everything they get is wrong.
Yeah, in my own little world,
Isn't any argument about this?
In the few youth that I speak to, and I'll define youth as under 25. I'm 55. I don't have that much communication with people under that age, except for my own children, and my son, doesn't talk to me about any of these things necessarily, but I think that he has a pretty good head on his shoulders. But from other youth that I've spoken to, I get more questions about, do you think there are reptilians than what do you think about global warming or climate change? And I don't know where that came from. I mean, the stuff about reptilians has always been around as sort of on the...
You mean like snakes?
Well, that's what it was when I was a kid, but then it's sort of morphed into... No, like the old TV show V, that we have humans that are just, their human skin is a mask, and they're actually reptilian underneath, and that they, either they're demonic or they came from underground, or in the...
Actually have people who talk to you about that?
Oh my goodness, yeah. There was a woman who almost got kicked off an airplane. This was on mainstream news because she was yelling that the guy next to her had lizard eyes and he was a reptilian. And the funny thing is nobody ever showed him. I mean, I guess he said, "Don't film me. I don't want to be known for this." I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Not stupid stuff. So take things like that seriously.
Very seriously.
That is the problem. You have people who believe that there are human reptiles going around, I don't know, is they're doing, or that Democrats have a secret sex cabal and they're drinking the blood of children, and all of that is exactly what I mean by the weaponization of misinformation.
Right. And
did you not see that?
Oh, yeah. Yes, you did. And that's why I brought it up as an example, because it's one that you would have thought 10, 20 years ago would be absurd or would be relegated to the fringes, or it'd be a ha-ha. I watch Ancient Aliens at night, ha-ha, they talk about this, or In Search of from the 70s or whatever it is. Now it's not a ha-ha. Now it's like part of a doctrine. And I think it is at the heart of at least part of what you described as your TCP. It's part of the belief that there is a belief that we are warriors battling Satan, basically, or some deep evil equivalent to Satan, and it's Kabbalists. So, and not like Kabbalah, the mysticism.
Eventually, we're back in the Middle Ages.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. It's sort of like the Salem witch trials, but broadband.
Yes, it's the weaponization of misinformation, and with the development of AI, where it was shown, for instance, that at the last election, 6 people were able to produce enough material, misinformation, that they altered the way people voted. And it's very cheap to do, for one thing. And other countries are doing it. The Russians are doing it. The Chinese are doing it. Americans, because they are not well educated, the TCP is trying to take apart public education. I mean, if 54% of the population, adult population, cannot read a sentence more complicated than the man walked across the street, they're not capable of even comprehending something like climate change. They're not capable of comprehending it. They can't read about it because they can't understand what they're reading.
Well, I do have two podcasts in this family. One is called Garden of Doom, and this is completely on that brand. However, I think this episode is going to be on Garden Views, so we try to stay away from leaning into the doom aspects as much. So, I mean, I think you've identified the problems, or at least part of them. Part of your studies, has to be that you've looked into at least what some potential solutions are. I mean, how do we turn any of this around? It'd be lovely to say we fix the public school system, but climate change, it's here. So which do we tackle first? I mean, there needs to be a plan, and there needs to be priorities, and then, execution points on those priorities. So what would Stephan Schwartz say is the priority list, and how to go about tackling these issues, understanding that they're all interrelated?
You want to know how to actually change things?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
All right. I will tell you exactly how to change things. And I will guarantee to you that it will work, because whenever it has been done, it always works. Okay? Here's what you do. Every day, you make dozens of little decisions. You buy a certain brand of cat food. You go to a certain gas station. You buy a certain laundry detergent. Every one of those is a vote. You are either voting for corporations which exploit and degrade well-being, or you work with companies that are fostering well-being. Every day you do that. You make hundreds of decisions. And if you will commit, I call them quotidian choices. If you will commit to do the research, to find out of the choices that you make, which are compassionate, life-affirming, and fostering of well-being, and at every point where you make a choice, you always choose of the options available to you, the one you understand to be the most compassionate, life-affirming, and fostering of well-being, and you tell 10 people that you are doing this as a discipline, and you invite them to join you, and ask 10 of their friends to do it. And what will happen is when 10% of any cohort, we know this from research again, when 10% of any cohort changes in consciousness, the whole cohort, no matter whether it's a school committee, a church group, or a nation, when 10% of the cohort changes, the whole cohort has to change to accommodate to that. So the people that are listening to this podcast, wherever you choose to air it, if they will commit to the quotidian choice of all choices are compassionate, life-affirming, and fostering of well-being, you don't have to have an army, you don't have to have money, you don't have to have an official position. This is how Gandhi got freedom and independence for India without a war. This is exactly how he did it. When they asked him before he was assassinated, how did you get the British to give up their most prized colonial possession without a war? He said it was not what we did that mattered, although that mattered. It was not what we said that mattered, although that mattered too. It was the nature of our character that made the British choose to give us independence. And if we want to maintain a life-affirming democracy, we have to get enough Americans to always commit to the quotidian choice that is compassionate, life-affirming, and fostering of well-being. And that will change the whole nature of the culture, because when 10% of us do that, it must change. And there's all kinds of scientific evidence for that. And people will elect different kinds of candidates for their parties. In this November 24 election, this is an election between are we fostering well-being with our vote, or are we destroying well-being? It is that simple. It's not.
Is there a resource?
Require all kinds of. Wait a minute.
Okay.
You'll have to edit that out.
Yeah.
Your resource?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, a resource to find company, because I think that the most obvious example is probably food choices. So people probably rely on going to Whole Foods, but I don't really know who owns Whole Foods. I don't know if they're vendors. I don't know who's really selling at the farmers market, if they're really the legit farmers, or if they're part of some giant corporate farm, mega farm.
I have to do some research.
Well, you said
I wrote a book called The 8 Laws of Change that will spell all this out in great detail. It will tell you exactly how to do it and guarantee to you why it works.
Okay, so that's okay. And where can people find that book? And just for the sake of repetition, which is always good. Amazon. And what's it called?
Go to StephanASchwartz.com. Go to Amazon. Go to SchwartzReport.net. Go to my podcast. Do any one of those things. Go to Barnes and Noble. Go to Smashword. Go to I can't think of all of them. But in any case, go to my website, StephanASchwartz.com, and pick the 8 Laws of Change and download it and read it and do what it says, because the book is entirely science-based. I give you, not only do I tell you it's science-based, but I give you hundreds and hundreds of references that you can go and dig into any part of this as deep as you want.
Well, I can tell you're a straight talking person, and I promise you this isn't a gotcha question. It's just something that seems obvious based on the conversation. One of the places to buy the book is Amazon. Amazon is owned by Jeff Bezos. He's obviously one of those 4 people you alluded to earlier. That's one of the choices that one might make, is by going to Amazon, but it is so I don't know. How do we reconcile that?
That's why I suggested you go to StephanASchwartz.com and download it there.
Okay, fair enough.
You go to Goodreads. That's another one.
Okay.
But I know I deal with reality, and I know that that's where most people will go. But go to StephanASchwartz.com, because I use the money from the book to finance my daily podcast and my weekly podcast and my daily web publication. If you go to schwartzreport.net, I put this up every day. If you go to my podcast, I not only do the podcast, but I also publish at the end of every podcast a complete reference list, science papers, so that you can go and check every fact I just told you to your own satisfaction.
What's the podcast called?
Schwartz Report.
Okay. So everything's on brand, which is smart. Okay. So the Schwartz Report, and I presume that you could find that on Apple, Spotify, Spreaker, Podbean, all the usual suspects?
All the usual places, yes.
Okay.
YouTube, Spotify. I don't even know all the places they put it up.
Yeah, nor do I. And then probably in 3 years, they'll all be owned by two companies anyway. Something that you mentioned earlier, which I happen to...
What's going to happen, by the way, is between 2040 and 2045, we're going to have a massive crisis. But by 2060, we're going to be on the other side of it. We're going to be a very, very different country. How do I know this? Because since 1978, I have been asking remote viewers. I'm one of the people. I have been asking people to remote view the future, and to date, they have an 83% accuracy rate.
What does remote view the future mean?
What do I mean by accuracy? Well, I'm sorry?
What does remote view the future mean?
I would say to you, Jeff, I want you to go forward. Let's see, today is the 18th of March. I would say to you, Jeff, I'd like you to go forward to 18 March 2060 and let me know when you feel you're there. Now, I'd like you to describe for me what you see, what images you get. It's like if I said to you, Jeff, can you remember the first time you took out a woman you were in love with to dinner? And you'd probably say, yes, I can remember that. It's just like that kind of memory. And I've done it with over 6,000 people at this point, all over the world, and they all tell the same story.
Okay. So what is that story that they tell?
The story that they tell is that we become two countries in a single nation, that we go through all these changes that I have been describing, that something happens between 2040 and 2045. I'm doing the analysis now, so I'm not quite sure what it is, so I can't say. I think from where I am at this point in the analysis, it's 10,000 pages of research, so it takes a lot of time. But what I think it's saying is that the end of the internal combustion engine will have been completed by then, and you can see that happening. That climate change will have caused massive changes. Portions of some countries will disappear. That's already happening too. That we will have been placed in such a crisis that we will awaken to the fact that fostering well-being is the only way for us to survive as a species, and we will begin to do that. Now, exactly as I say, what causes this crisis in 2040 to 2045, I'm not entirely clear, except that I think part of it is climate change, and part of it, that's sort of the bad news. The good news is that the internal combustion engine ceases to be used in transportation. We change the laws that control how the internet operates so that there is a responsibility to integrity. But there's much more. I just don't know it all. But I have been doing this, as I say, since 78. These people have have accurately predicted that the demise of the Soviet Union. They predicted COVID and AIDS and S5N1, I can't remember, and SARS. They correctly predicted all of those things. They predicted the rise of gender equality. They predicted the rise of racism and then its demise, because by 2016, race is no longer an issue. Gender issues are no longer issues. People no longer work in big towers, big skyscrapers. We are a culture that is much simpler isn't the right word. Much more respectful of everything that in fact that impacts the climate. So our architecture is quite different. Roads power the vehicles that drive on them. People don't travel as much. There still is air flight, but much less. The United States is no longer the dominant world leader. I think other things that stand out.
Who are these cohort members? Who are these folks that you're talking to have made these successful?
Like you and the people that are watching your podcast. I have done this in China, Russia, Germany, Italy, France, England, Jamaica, Bermuda, Bahamas, Canada, the United States. Whenever I went to speak at a conference or something, I would say, would some people like to participate in an experiment? And then I would interview them, and I would say, as I said to you, Jeff, it's the 18th of November, 2050. What is it like? And I would ask them questions. They would answer them. I would record this. It would get transcribed, and then I do a concept-by-concept analysis.
Okay. A while ago, you mentioned Citizens United, and I absolutely agree with you that decision was a pivotal turning point. I'm not even sure that the decision was wrongly made on law, but again, that's one of these things where I blame Congress for not changing the law, but that's sort of irrelevant. It is what it is at the moment, and what you've suggested is sort of a grassroots, sort of organic capitalism route to betterment. But governments have to be involved too. And I think that changing Citizens United is necessary. And there's a lot of hard policy decisions that have to be done. And all of them are extremely hard. But I think what we can agree on, you and I right now, is that one of them has to be that there can't be money in at least national level campaigns. And once you do that, you get a more representative government.
We should have publicly funded elections. And we should eliminate the electoral college. And we should change the structure of the Senate. Yes, I agree with all that.
Yeah, I'm not even sure if I've gone to all that far, but the public financing, no exceptions, no loopholes, no dark money, no PAC money, it's a strict scrutiny, national security, sovereignty kind of thing that overcomes an amendment. The problem is the people who have to vote on it are the people that are benefiting from the system and don't want to vote on it. But all of the things that are our pressing problems are hard and face the same political issue. I think that's the one that helps make all the others easier, whether it's more reasonable immigration reform, whether it's more reasonable gun reform, whether it's more reasonable mental health support and social services in coordination with better law enforcement. I mean, one of the reasons people like strongmen is because people want order over chaos, us and are willing to give up a little bit of, freedom with that. But once you give up a little bit of freedom, it's a little at a time. It's never just one little chunk and then it stops. It just keeps going. But the other side is true too. I mean, once you start giving too much freedom, then you can get to nihilism or anarchy pretty soon as well. Though I think the world has shown us that it's easier to get to fascism and authoritarianism than to anarchy, because people do like to live in a social contract where they can, go to sleep at night and believe that they're going to wake up in the morning.
Yes, well, of course. And in fact, crime is going down.
Yeah, it's interesting that there's a giant disconnect. I'm sorry, there's a little lag, so I was speaking of you. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, no, I was just going to say, crime is going down. Those are the statistics. The one thing that we still face uniquely as a country is that the main cause of death for young people is a bullet in their bodies. That's the main cause of death for the youth. And it's because we have a national gun psychosis. And the reason that we had this mental illness about guns is because the NRA was transformed from a safety training organization when I was a boy to a political operation which supports the weapons manufacturers. And so we have a situation in which almost any day of the week, you turn it on and there's just been another series of murders because somebody went into somewhere with an AR-15 or an AK-47 and just randomly killed a bunch of people. It's because we don't have a sensible, realistic, well-being fostering view of guns in our culture. And no other country in the world has anything like this. We have more people killed by guns than most wars.
Yeah, that is true. There are places where they're actually shooting civil wars right now where there's less people that die from gun violence. I mean, of course, people can say, well, who's keeping those statistics? I don't know. But whatever it is, even if it's close, it shouldn't be.
Violent archive is keeping those statistics. And you can go to the Gun Violence Archive, and they make all of their data completely open, and it is all derived directly from objectively verifiable information. So we know exactly how many people are getting killed every day, and how many young people particularly, because, as I said, the main cause of death amongst young people is a bullet in their bodies.
No, I wasn't talking about the United States. I was talking about how do we know how many people in Yemen or in Sudan or whatnot. But
we don't.
Yeah, I mean, but the point is A, well taken. B, it's that it shouldn't even be close. The United States of America, we're a very blessed country. We need not be comparing ourselves to countries that are in active civil wars that are in vastly different resource positions than we are at the moment for whatever reason or reasons. We get too busy. We get a little bit say, well, that's because they were the victim of colonialization. Oh, maybe it's so, but that doesn't mean that we should have a proportionate rate of internal gun violence because of that. I mean, we should still be better off on that side and fix ourselves and then hope to fix work on the rest of the world. All right. Well, we focused a bit on the United States. I recently read a book called The Ministry of the Future by Kim Stanley Robinson. He's a science fiction writer / futurist. If you haven't read it, I think you might enjoy it. But it's not a book that I think everyone would enjoy, but it reminds me that there's, it's got to be a worldwide effort. Obviously, I mean, the statistics of what the United States uses resource-wise and what we emit is disproportionate to pretty much every place else. But there is the rest of the world too. So how does the rest of the world get on board with this? And I don't mean like the island nations that already are, that are already pushing for it. I mean the other countries that are reluctant, like we are.
Well, I mean, it's already happening in the Nordic countries are working to foster well-being. The Netherlands, although they're developing a rightist movement too. What I was saying to you earlier when we began is that precognitive, that is a sense of the future that is not consciously, intellectually comprehended, it's just a feeling, it's a gut feeling, is sweeping across all of humanity, which is why there is a rightist movement in so many different countries, why that suddenly authoritarianism is beginning to blossom in countries where you've never seen it before, and it's because people are fearful. They don't know quite why they're fearful, or if you press them, they cite some particular thing. But the reality is that all humans, because consciousness is causal and fundamental, and we are fundamentally manifestations of consciousness, and all consciousness is interconnected and interdependent. Everyone, everywhere, has this sort of lurking sense in their unconscious of discomfort, of fear, of anxiety, whatever. And it's making them look for what they think will be authoritarian solutions to solve the problem. And it's going to get worse. And the way that you deal with it is exactly what I just said. It's the quotidian choice. Just exactly like Gandhi did in India, or Martin Luther King did to get the civil rights movement working. We have to each make a decision that we are going to foster well-being, and that foster well-being for others is actually fostering well-being for ourselves. And we don't have to get everybody, we just have to get, as I said earlier, you have to get at least 10% or a little more, and I'll give you examples of how that happens, of that happening. When I was a boy, you were in your 50s, so I'm older than you. So when I was a boy, you went over to somebody's house and you saw an ashtray and a pack of cigarettes on the coffee table in the living room and one of those lighters your mother told you not to fool with. Mm-hmm. You never see that anymore.
No.
Why is that? Did the president go on television and say, no one is to smoke? No. Did somebody pass a law that says you can't smoke? No. What happened is people became informed and they made the choice that fostered well-being, and enough of them did it that you never see it anymore. I'll give you another example. When I was a boy, you had the word Negro, NACP. When was the last time you heard anybody say the word Negro? You don't.
Not if they didn't belong to that class. I mean that race. I mean, internally it's different.
They don't say that anymore.
Right.
Why? Because enough people changed their minds. They changed in consciousness. They understood it had negative implications, and they stopped saying it. Or I'll give you another one. When I was a boy, you said gay. You don't hear gay much anymore. You hear LGBTQ. Why? Because people have changed in consciousness about how they see the term and how they see those people. Not everybody, but particularly amongst the young, a growing number of young people see LGBTQ as a perfectly acceptable way to be. And so the word gay has almost disappeared, and it's been replaced by another word. So cigarettes, Negro, gay, all of those things represent changes which occurred in the culture because a group of people changed in consciousness. The solution to the problem is working to change consciousness. When you change people's consciousness, you change the way they vote, you change the choices they make, the companies they work with, you change everything, and society changes.
But part of the problem that you've outlined quite well, I mean, and it's almost immutable, is that, or undeniable, is that a large population has, I always say pendulum swing, have gone from the pendulum where progress, the history leans towards progress. I think it was Martin Luther King who said that. The pendulum seems to be swinging back for at least, as you said, 15 to 30% of the American population, and we seem to be going back to the Dark Ages or the Middle Ages in a lot of respects, which means that some of those words are going to come back. Some of those attitudes, you're getting an equal and opposite reaction. So, and some of those attitudes, they're not being said out loud, but they're still there in the closets. They're still there in private conversations in some quarters.
Oh yeah, look at the rise of anti-Semitism.
Sure.
I mean, you've got a candidate for president who's an open anti-Semite. I mean, you've got people in the Congress who are openly anti-Semitic. It's unbelievable that something that you would have thought had disappeared was no longer socially a part of the society, and yet it has reemerged. You see the kind of racism. I mean, when Johnson signed in 64 and 65, signed the Voting Rights Act and the Civil Rights Act, I thought, because I had been involved with the civil rights movement as a young man, I thought, well, that's the end of it then. Okay, so we're still going to have some people who are racist, but as a society, we're over that. And yet, it's worse than it was in the 50s in some areas. Why? Again, because people are fearful and anxious and resentful. Look at the business about migrants. Every single human being in the United States, every single one, there is not one exception, is either an immigrant or the descendant of an immigrant. There were no Homo sapiens in North America. Every single person, from Native Americans to whatever, is either an immigrant themselves or the descendant of an immigrant. We couldn't exist were it not for immigration. As any businessman will tell you, look at what is happening in agriculture as they don't have enough workers. Look at what's happening. We don't have enough firefighters because we have an increasing number of fires and there aren't enough firefighters. We don't have enough doctors. We don't have enough nurses. Why? Because a large percentage of those were made up of people who immigrated to the country. So we have this anti-immigrant business going on, and yet every person who holds that position is themselves either an immigrant or the descendant of an immigrant.
Well, that's certainly true. I mean, we are a country of immigrants. Unless you believe that ancient aliens came down and populated the continents, including this one. And the same holds for South America, by the way. There were no Homo sapiens there either, until, I don't know, whatever, 20 or 30,000 years ago, whatever the things keep getting older, but that's at some point. I have a question. I don't know if you have an answer for this one, but how does a party that is Christo at some fundamental portion of it galvanize around a man who's completely irreligious, amoral? His two out of his three wives were immigrants. I mean, one is, his daughter converted to Orthodox Judaism. Most of his business ventures that people know about have failed. Most of his successful ventures are not his ventures. They're just him licensing his name. How is it that he has become the populist hero when most of his followers would not be allowed on the grounds of his golf club. I mean, I don't understand. It's like if the people who stormed the Bastille chose the King of France.
Yes, well, two things. One, ignorance, largely willful ignorance. And it's not being that their view. I'm stand you, and because of the weaponization of misinformation, the one thing that Trump is good at is that he understood what people's fears were. Maybe because so many of them are his own. I met Donald Trump many years ago, and I thought at the time speaking of reptiles, I met him at a party that Gloria Vanderbilt gave. This is way back in the 60s. And I was in my 20s. He was a little younger, in his 20s. And I talked to him for a few minutes. We were standing at the bar. Neither one of us drank, so we were both getting some seltzer water. That's what got us started talking. And I thought he had this reptilian quality. And I still think that. But it's that he was able to identify and articulate fear and resentment and anxiety in a way that people who didn't either choose to take the time to learn what he was really about, or so they were willfully ignorant, or weren't capable of understanding the reality of who he is. There's not one answer to that. But he articulates in the same way that Hitler did or Mussolini did. Exactly the same thing. And in fact, one of his earlier wives said he kept a book of next to his bed on what was done by Hitler to come to power, because he's doing basically the same thing. And the Germans at the time were doing the same thing that about a third of Americans are doing today.
Interesting. All right. I didn't want to get too much into Donald Trump. I try to stay away from politics a little bit, but it's sort of unavoidable. And it's certainly, and I asked, but it's certainly part of the question and the crux of the conversation. As we near the hour mark, is there some sort of, in summation, that you would like to give, or some point that wasn't made yet, or something that I didn't ask you that there's a answer to a question that you'd like to provide?
Well, I would simply say we stand at a crossroads as a country. The election in November 2024 is going to determine what kind of country we become. And you, who are listening to this or watching it, have a role to play. And that is, if you will begin with every little bitty choice that you make to always choose compassion, life-affirming, and fostering of well-being, you will not only make others better, but you will make yourself better. And if I leave you with no other message than that, that is my closing thought.
Wonderful. Well, Stephan A. Schwartz, the site is stephanaschwartz.com. You have the Schwartz Report podcast. We talked about the book, which don't get it on Amazon if you have another choice. And I appreciate your coming on and sharing your knowledge and wisdom and being open to engage in these conversations. And hopefully a lot of people will listen. It's more for the younger people than it is for you or me, because when you were asking me about 2060, I'm thinking I'm not going to be here in 2060. So, though getting there maybe, it can be either easier or more difficult. But especially if you live on the coasts or on an island like Manhattan, which is probably not helping the situation, or Long Island, you may be, or Nantucket or whatnot, you may want to think about moving a little bit more quickly, inspirationally, if not physically. So with that, I thank everyone for listening. Check out his stuff. Why don't you give a subscribe to his podcast, and you can hear it weekly. And I'm sure he gets into far more detail than we could ever get here. And you can give him a rating and review. And I'd love for you to give me a rating and a review, 5 stars if you please. And we love referrals. So anyway, thank you once again to our guest, Stephan A. Schwartz. Thank you all for listening, and we'll hear from you next week, or more to the point, you'll hear from us next week in the garden.